you just let us know when to go.
Okay, just about 30 seconds probably.
Okay.
Okay, we're live.
Okay, let's call the Public Safety Committee to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Boyd,
Present.
Alderwoman Davis, Alderwoman Howard,
Present.
Alderwoman Spencer,
Present.
Alderwoman Boyd,
Present.
Alderman Bosley, Alderman Muhammad,
Present.
Alderman Oldenburg,
Present.
Alderman Narayan,
Present.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard,
Here.
Alderman Page,
Present.
Chairman Vaquero.
Present.
10 present, you have quorum.
Okay, so I would like to get a motion that we approve the minutes of the March 23rd meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
I'm sorry, Alderman, I didn't catch who seconded that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I believe
Second.
Thank
Alderman
you.
Howard was the first and Alderman John Muhammad was the second.
Thank you. Alderman Boyd,
Aye.
Alderwoman Davis,
Aye.
Alderwoman Howard,
Aye.
Alderwoman Spencer,
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd,
Aye.
Alderman Bosley, Alderman Muhammad,
Aye.
Alderman Oldenburg,
Aye.
Alderman Narayan,
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard,
Aye.
Alderman Page,
Aye.
Chairman Vaquero.
Aye.
11 aye votes.
Okay, we're gonna, I was gonna actually do resolution 9 to start, but I think since it looks like we have speakers, I think I'm gonna go down the list. We're gonna start with Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Let's start with Board Bill number 3. If you want to speak on your bill.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Good morning. I'll start. What we have before us is Board Bill number 3. Board Bill authorizing and directing the Circuit Attorney Kimberly Gardner on behalf of the City of St. Louis to enter into a grant agreement with the United States Department of Justice, Bureau of Justice Assistance, Office of Justice Programs for funding to create the St. Louis Circuit Attorney Navigation, Diversion, and Opportunity Programs. And this one is for $1,159,234. And with me today, I have Brother Khatib Wahid on behalf of our Circuit Attorney Kim Gardner, who will be available to answer any questions as well as myself.
Okay, did you want him to speak on that or just answer questions?
I would like for him to speak, and then he is available to answer questions as well.
So you're up then.
All right, thank you. I want to extend the greetings of peace to all of you, all the board members, board staff, guests. And I especially want to thank you, Chairman Vaquero, for allowing me to be on this agenda. And certainly thanks to Alderwoman Clark Hubbard for sponsoring and introducing this bill. We have 2, Board Bill 3 and Board Bill 4. And as the Alderwoman has indicated, the first one is in the amount of $1.1 million. And this is for a comprehensive opioid abuse site-based program run out of the Circuit Attorney's Office. And basically, there are probably 3 or 4 main components to it. The first of which is we would provide education, we would facilitate access to treatment, and provide wraparound case management services as an alternative to incarceration. So this would be for low-level persons who committed a low-level drug possession charge, a non-violent charge. This is not for distribution, and it's not for violence associated with it. Second of all, it would create kind of a citation referral system to the St. Louis Police Department, and then the University of Missouri would provide some evaluation supports or serve as an evaluation partner. And I just want to lift up the fact that over the last few years, St. Louis, or people in Missouri, represent the third highest opioid-related death population in the country. And we have seen some progress, particularly for women and white individuals, white males who are faced with this tragic substance use issue, where the decline has been about 8%. But for African Americans, we've not fared so well. There's been an increase of about 17%. And between the years or the periods between January and July 2019 and January and July 2020, there's been about a 54% increase in the number and percentage of opioid-related deaths. So we think it's really important that we provide some interventions associated with the criminal justice system. The second board bill number 4, is being funded at the amount of about $359,000, and this is for witness protection for in domestic violence cases primarily. We will be using a lethality assessment, which basically looks at the likelihood that death will be the result of the abuse and the violence in a domestic case. And so we want to provide protection services for victims in these, protection from the death and protection from intimidation. And we will be prioritizing those cases based on the files that we would be reviewing. The domestic violence cases have increased exponentially over the last year, and we believe to some extent because of COVID and the fact that people are confined to their homes and where they're not able to move about as much. So those are basically the 2 board bills. Let me stop there because I know we have limited amount of time, and maybe I could answer any questions or concerns that you all may raise.
I actually have a question for Clerk Terry Kennedy. If Terry, is the clerk out there still?
I am.
I have a question. So in this case, he's not far against. He's speaking as someone speaking for the alderwoman, speaking on her bill. So I'm just trying to understand our new rules. Should I have sworn him in prior to his testimony? And I know he's not limited because he's an expert witness or testimony for. I know that speakers for and against have to be sworn in. The question is, should I have sworn him in? And if so, I'll do it backwards. But it's just so I know. Well, I guess so we all know.
Yeah, that requires an interpretation of the rules. I would say that as an expert witness, he doesn't necessarily have to.
Okay.
But that portion of the rules could use some more clarity, and that's why the Rules Committee is going to look at it.
Okay, because I was unclear, and I know we're not limiting them to time when it's sworn.
Correct.
Again, I just didn't know if I should have sworn them in prior to. Okay, and I apologize. So we're going to go down the list here. If anyone has any questions, Vice Chairman Boyd, any questions?
Yes, good.
For either or?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear
Can
you.
you hear me okay?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, Kati, my only question is, in the spirit of collaboration and cooperation, we've put the Community Justice Coordinating Council together. Are they supporting this project, and have you included a letter of support from them to kind of help strengthen the application?
I'm not aware of I don't have an answer for that question. I can get it for you, but at this point, I can't say if there's been a letter of support from them or not.
Okay, I just want to make sure that as we make these grant applications with limited funds out there, that we're all working collaboratively together. And I would be curious to know, so if you can get back to me to let me know if you guys have requested or you don't want one, or you will include one, I'd appreciate it.
Well, we certainly welcome
this
any and
process is
all
working well.
persons that are interested in addressing this issue. As you probably know, these are grants that we've received from the Bureau of Justice Assistance Programs from the Department of Justice. And so we, as you are well aware, we're seeking the line item approval to begin to expend the funds.
Thank you. No further questions.
Alderwoman Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want a brief statement, no questions. I want to share with you, and please share with our Madam Gardner, that victims have been asking for help. We spent a lot of time talking about those who commit crimes and are suspected of committing crimes, but we haven't talked a lot about the assistance for victims. So I'm very, very excited about this. We need to make sure that it's well advertised throughout our communities so that people know this will be available. And I thank you. That's it, sir.
Alderwoman Howard.
Thank you, Alderwoman Davis.
Alderwoman Howard. Any questions?
Yes. Just for clarity, Alderwoman from the 19th brought up something. I'm a bit confused. This does not address victims. Is that correct? This grant?
It does. It provides protection from intimidation and death.
Okay, for victims. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And it
Yes.
also is a diversion for those that of low-level crimes that may be addicted.
No, those are two different board bills,
That's what
Alderwoman
I was
Howard.
gonna say. I think for clarity, we need to just stick to the board bill number 3 first, because that's where I think the mix up is.
Oh, I see, but my apologies.
That's okay.
Oh, so Mr. Wahid, you were speaking to both board bills.
Yes, that's correct. That's correct.
That's where I'm kind of, okay.
My apologies.
All right.
So the board bill 3, to Alderwoman Clark Hubbard's point, that's the one that speaks to the opioid addiction issue.
Okay. And the objective is?
To provide education, referrals, facilitate access to treatment programs, and to provide case management wraparound supports for persons who've committed a nonviolent opioid drug-related possession offense.
So Board Bill 3 does not address victims. Is that true?
Per se, if you think about the person who are substance using as victims, then yes, it does.
Okay, but not victims of crime, so to speak.
No, this is not. This is for nonviolent drug use offenders.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and so you don't recruit them until they come before you or are charged with an offense. Is that correct?
That's correct. This would be a post arrest.
Okay. Okay. I would just say that in reading this bill, it talks about the funds, but it doesn't. I think the objective would be appropriate included in there, but that's okay. I'm not gonna demand that, but okay, yeah, that helps me because I was a bit confused with mixing both of them. So, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Alderwoman Alderwoman Spencer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Wahid, for being here and helping us better understand these grants. So the 1.1 million has already been awarded to the Circuit Attorney's Office. Is that right? And this board bill just allows us to start expending them?
That's correct.
Okay. I want to first recognize the Circuit Attorney's Office for applying for these grants and being awarded. I think that's a great thing, and this $1.1 million can certainly be put to good use in a much needed area. The amount of the statistics that you mentioned on the front end of this conversation, were really alarming, and certainly something that I think we need to be better aware of. If you could share those with us, I was trying to jot them down just to better understand where we are in the grand scheme of things when it comes to opioid addictions and deaths here in the city of St. Louis, and how that's disproportionately affecting people, particularly people of color. I think it would be helpful for the committee to better understand that as we move through policies for this year. If you could share that information. I didn't get to jot them all down, so it would be helpful. My question is really about how we're going to be spending the 1.1 million. You mentioned education, referrals, case management, et cetera, referrals to drug treatment programs, et cetera. I know that we have a dearth of them. We have a much greater need than we currently service, particularly in the state of Missouri, which failed to expand Medicaid and fails to really have a good, adequate drug addiction resources. Can you help me understand if we're going to be using that $1.1 million for city employees, or we're going to be contracting with service providers, or who's going to be actually functionally doing the work that you mentioned?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say a significant portion of the services would be provided by our office, because these issues come to us by way of a felony charge. And so, for example, we would have at least 2 therapists, LCSW level persons who, are trained in opioid addiction issues and cognitive behavior therapy issues and backgrounds. Also some case managers, but we will also be partnering. We've actually been partnering with UMSL that as a program provides some programming management, some evaluation, and they also have helped with some of the classes. So we don't intend to contract the bulk of these services out, because we want to make sure that the work is being done in a way that addresses a public safety concern.
Sure. So then, are there opportunities for service providers to work directly with the Circuit Attorney's Office? We in the 20th Ward have several organizations that work directly with people experiencing drug addiction. Particularly BASIC is one of those, which focuses on people of color experiencing addiction, as well as Missouri Opiate Reform and Recovery down here on South Broadway, which offers services to family members and those experiencing drug addiction. I was curious if we had opportunities to coordinate better with the Circuit Attorney's Office for the services those organizations provide, and if there's an opportunity there, if you could share it with the committee. I'm sure there are other who may have organizations that serve the community that may benefit, that may have a mutual benefit for both the Circuit Attorney's Office, the city as a whole, and those organizations to partner. I'll share that information with them.
I think it would be certainly okay to make them aware that this grant has been made available. The nuance in terms of what a partnership would look like with some existing providers, we would need to talk about that and figure out just what that would look like. One place that I believe that such a collaboration could occur would be with respect to the wraparound services. So once the person has come, and I'm saying this in terms of how I see it, I certainly need to talk this over with Ms. Gardner. But having done work in this field over a number of years, it is important, I believe, to your point, that we build upon an existing infrastructure in the city to meet the needs of everybody who lives in the city, with the understanding that this would be run out of the Circuit Attorney's Office. And so I see the opportunity, the greatest opportunity, to be with the provision of wraparound services. Once the person comes to our attention as a result of a charge.
Sure. Well, I don't want to take the whole meeting here, but I do. This is such an important issue, and to strengthen the relationship, the partnership with the city, the Circuit Attorney's Office, and those few service providers that we can strengthen. Let us know if we can be of assistance in that.
I appreciate I appreciate you extending the invitation, and yes, I will definitely be following up with you.
Excellent. And if you could share that the statistical information for our benefit and our knowledge, it would be very, very helpful. I have no further questions, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate your presence here today, Mr. Wahid.
Thank you. Thank you for your questions and your ideas.
Alderwoman Pam Boyd, she might have gotten dropped. She did send me a text because I do not see her.
Yeah, she sent me a text too saying she was having problems with her video.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't see her on here anymore. Let me text her back and see.
Okay. And I think what we'll do while you're doing that, I'm going to drop down one and we'll come back to her. Okay. I'm just going to drop down to Alderman Bosley. I don't know if he's with us today.
No,
Yep, I see him there.
thank you. So I'm having problems with my phone, so if it drops out or anything. This my signal is very good. On and off the meeting, I couldn't hear any audio for some time either. But most circuit attorney up in efforts.
You sound really chopped up.
Sorry about that. I know that the circuit attorney's office is doing a lot of work on the front end of criminal justice reform. And, I think it's great that they're being proactive in finding monies and not only focusing on the funding here that the city is providing, or the funding that is coming down the pipeline that the city is providing, or the federal government has provided. I think there definitely are a lot of changes that need to be made. And I just want to say, just as a comment, I appreciate you all being proactive and what you all are working towards doing within the city as far as reform and how we do things in the system. As a grant, I don't have a particular question or doesn't seem to be anything. I'm familiar with the programs. I do think they work very, very well within the city. So, I definitely am in support. I also agree with Kara Spencer. There are some great organizations within our city that are doing really, really grassroots work that are the connection here through our communities and kind of connect us more with individuals who are looking into making changes in the future for themselves. But I do understand the difference in correlation also between basic and other institutions and what the circuit attorney office is working towards doing. Also one of the mindful that before anything comes to certain times, it does it comes in the form like brother T said, form of a felony. So a lot of folks on the street right now who are involved in drug use that necessarily done large crimes or their crime because of some narcotics or that's willing to things like that. So I appreciate you all.
I think we lost him and we were just getting like every other word, but I think I understood him to say that he's in support of this.
I am. I told you my signal's messed up. I don't know how much you can hear.
But about every third word, but I think I understood. Then we're gonna.
Okay.
I just want to ask Alderman Page. I see you have your hands up. Normally we go down in the order of seniority, but I know you said you have to leave off and on. Is it that you have to leave and you need to ask a question now?
No, Mr. Chairman, I can wait my turn. Thank you.
Okay, that's just normal, how we normally do it. But if someone does have to leave for a reason, I'm certainly willing to jump out of order. Alderwoman Pam Boyd, have you been able to get back on yet?
She wasn't able to get back on. It might be the weather. And she said that she didn't have any questions that she supported, but she, as well as myself and other colleagues, just want to ensure that the Circuit Attorney's Office is partnering with other organizations and know that we want to assist them as much as we can. And I told her that sounds like the consensus of us this morning. So I wanted to make sure I got her voice heard.
Okay, that's fine. And hopefully she can get on for the vote. I mean, I'd like her to be a part of the vote. Alderman John Muhammad.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will yield to my colleague from the Fifth Ward if he has a pressing question.
Well, he said he could wait. I was going to put him ahead of everybody if that was the case, but no, he said he's okay.
Okay, I have no questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, wonderful. Alderman Tom Oldenburg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple questions around tracking the data and the efficacy and the success of this. And I think it's laudable that this program is being funded. What measures are going to be put in place to track the data so that we can see it being successful and hopefully ask for additional grant dollars in the future, being able to evidence a track record of success? Can you just speak to those controls for me, please?
Well, the actual controls and the research questions are typically developed by researchers. Our partner in that process would be the University of Missouri, St. Louis, Missouri Institute of Mental Health. So that's who we plan to partner with. So if I'm understanding your question correctly, that's where the idea, or that's where the questions, the research questions per se would be developed. That's where the data sets would be established. But we do have an evaluation component.
They'll be helping your office with the methodology of.
That's exactly right.
And the data capturing. That's great. Okay. I appreciate that. I look forward to seeing that. Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Alderman Brett Narayan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe that all of my questions have been answered already. Thank you.
I'm going to skip Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Alderman Page.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've been watching and listening closely, and I just want to get one thing for clarity. It's my understanding that Board Bill 3 provides or intends to provide services for those who are already in or have entered the criminal justice system. I just wanted to understand, are there any planned programs, services, outreach for users, abusers who may have issues but may not be in the criminal justice system yet?
You mean that would emanate from the Circuit Attorney's Office?
Not necessarily. Is all the input from the Circuit Attorney's Office?
But if I understand your question, Alderman Page, I think it's a two-part question. One is, what's available for people who are not yet justice involved?
Yes.
And the other one is for those who are. Our office will focus on those who are justice involved, because that's our mission, that's our purpose, that's our call, part of our call with respect to public safety. But as Alderwoman Spencer and Alderwoman Davis and others have indicated, Clark Hubbard, there are service providers out here like Basic and others that have been doing work for years to assist those persons who are faced with these kind of abuse issues, that are dealing with it more from their involvement prior to justice involvement. So there are entities out there. I couldn't necessarily list all of them for you.
Right, and just a comment, this isn't a question. Someone referred to it earlier. It sounds to me like it would be a good idea to have this effort join with the Community Justice Coordinating Council so that another independent stovepipe isn't being created. Just a thought. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. I actually saw Alderman Dan Gunther, and I see Alderwoman Dwayne Evans. If you have a question, I'll start with Alderman Dan Gunther. I don't see anybody else out there. Alderman Gunther, any questions? Comments?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I don't have any questions. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, okay, no questions. Alderwoman Dwayne Evans, any questions or comments? None. You're muted, but I see you shaking your head, so. I like the picture of the Woody behind you, the old car. I think she's trying
Can you
to,
hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay. No, I don't have any questions. I just got on. I'm sorry. I'm having my car worked on at the dealership.
Oh, okay, it's okay. That's why the picture of the car. That's kind of a cool little car. So I think what I'm going to do is go to, did Alderwoman Pam Boyd, any chance that you got on with us yet? I'm assuming she has not. I'm going to recognize Alderwoman Shane Clark Hubbard to close our comment and close.
Okay, thank you so much again, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I want to thank my colleague, Alderman Boyd, for bringing up the CJCC and the collaboration piece, because I absolutely, everyone knows how much I believe in the work that the CJCC is doing and how it's bringing us together, breaking these silos and these invisible lines that have been created in the city of St. Louis so that we can work collectively to move forward, especially as it relates to our criminal justice system. So I did reach out to Miss Debbie Allen with the CJCC, out to some people as well, and she said that JCC would be in support of this. And she actually could be on the call, but I told her there was a cutoff on the time that you could sign up to be a speaker. So she just, and I applaud her for that, always being responsive and being available to speak to these issues on behalf of the CJCC and the amazing work that they're doing. So I think the consensus was heard, and I'm sure Brother Khatib would agree that we want to work together with these funds to make this this work not only successful but sustainable. So with that, I would ask that for Board Bill number 3, we do pass this with a due pass recommendation.
Second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Alderwoman, I'm sorry, what? Was that a call for previous role?
Previous role.
Well, the only reason I ask is because Alderman Bosley joined us. And I don't know, does he object to previous role?
He wasn't on it. He wasn't on previous.
Was
role.
that on the previous role? That's what I'm saying.
Mr. Chairman, I'll object just so we can get a fresh roll call.
Okay, then Madam Clerk, please call.
Alderman Boyd,
Aye.
Alderwoman Davis,
Aye.
Alderwoman Howard,
Aye.
Alderwoman Spencer,
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd, Alderman Bosley,
Aye.
Alderman Muhammad,
Aye.
Alderman Oldenburg,
Aye.
Alderman Narayan,
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard,
Aye.
Alderman Page,
Aye.
Chairman Vaccaro.
Aye.
11 aye votes.
Having 11 aye votes, we passed out. Board Bill number 3. Let's go on to Board Bill number 4. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, if you want to speak on that, we'll move on to questions and see how we go with this.
Sure, because again, Board Bill number 4 is an additional companion bill to authorize the Circuit Attorney Kim Gordon on behalf of the City of St. Louis to enter into an additional grant agreement. And Brother Kim spoke of this one earlier as well, and just another difference. I know there were some questions about witness protection programming, so the questions about that one can be asked now of Brother Khatib.
Vice Chairman Boyd, any questions?
No questions.
Alderwoman Davis, any questions?
No questions.
Alderwoman Howard, any questions?
No questions.
Alderwoman Spencer, any questions?
Mr. Chair, did you call on me?
Yes, yes.
Sorry, it kind of glitched out on me there. Thank you so much. My only question was really just, I think this is a great move in the right direction. Obviously, I think the Circuit Attorney's Office deserves some gratitude on our part for initiating and seeking out this grant and being awarded it. This is another much needed area of investment. And so, but I was curious just what we can expect for victims by way of witness protection. Is this going to be funding, housing? Is it going to be, putting women, or excuse me, I shouldn't say women, I should say victims of domestic assault, domestic violence in protective housing, or what can we be expecting?
I think it's going to be a range, Alderwoman Spencer, going from pre-trial, pre-trial, during trial, and post-trial, so that those persons know that they can get to court safely and be safe while the court proceedings are going on and afterwards. I think in some instances it will entail some housing. I'm unable to say at this time percentages or portions of the overall budget that would be dedicated to what particular activity. I know you didn't ask that, but it kind of is implicit in that we are looking at 2.5 staff, which would mean 1 investigator who would be assigned to those cases full time. 1 ACA, that is 1 assistant circuit attorney who would basically handle those cases, and then someone in victim services who would make sure that that person is getting, and that family is actually getting the support and wraparound services that they need to have a new life.
Can I get Alderwoman yourself? Background noise coming through. Alderwoman Evans, can you please mute yourself? There's just a lot of background coming.
Alderwoman Spencer, did I answer your question?
You did. The only I'd like to make a comment, and one just to say that this is an issue that's hit home for us here in the 20th Ward. We lost a woman to domestic assault. The perpetrator was somebody who was out on bail, and so this is such an important issue, and I want to thank you for taking these steps. One of the issues I know that's come up is being aware of those folks who are at risk, and letting them know when people are coming out of incarceration, and that alerting system. I know that can have some hiccups, and it has in the past. It has been an issue that we maybe need to take a look at investing in further to make sure that when people are let out, that those sensitive witnesses and victims are made aware immediately without hiccup. I know there can be some technical glitches, so just want to make a comment that that's something we need to be hopefully including in this work as we move forward.
Well, I do think that's an excellent point. I've had some recent discussions with some of our folks in victim services on a particular case. And again, speaking in my voice, if I'm crowned king for a day and can wave my magic wand, one of my swipes or wand waves would be to make sure that we are up to date in the contact information for the victims. And so by having, that would be, in my humble opinion, one of the important roles of this part-time victim support service person, to make sure that we have the current email addresses, the current cell phone numbers, those kinds of the current addresses, because when we don't have that, obviously it's very difficult to almost impossible to alert them in a timely fashion. And we're not looking for excuses. We need to make sure people are safe, as you're pointing out. And so, in my humble opinion, that would be one of the priority areas, along with some other important areas as well.
Well, I can speak from personal experience, having signed up for alerts. They did not go through in a timely manner for me. And speaking to other victims, I know this has been an issue of maybe a technological origin, but one that needs to be rectified And I don't necessarily, I think it may be with a contractor or some kind of service provider that provides those alerts. But certainly the contact information is very important. I think having a person on the other end of the phone, making sure that those particularly sensitive victims are aware is a really, really good step in the right direction. And I think no amount of technology can compensate for having that human interaction from the circuit attorney's office for the victims is very helpful.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you so much, Mr. Wahid, and
Thank you.
That
Great
is all the
points, great
questions
questions. Yep,
that I
appreciate it.
have, Mr. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I think I see Alderwoman Pam Boyd back with us. Maybe I don't. Let's see.
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. I don't know what happened with the computer thing, but I have no questions.
Okay. Alderman John Muhammad.
No questions, Mr. Chair.
Alderman Oldenburg.
No questions. No further questions.
Alderman Bretton Ryan.
No questions, Mr. Chair.
Alderman Page.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No questions at this time.
And I have no questions. Alderwoman Shameen Clark Hubbard, you are recognized on closing on board bill number 4.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Alderwoman Spencer, for bringing those things up. And what stood out to me is what you said about what does this mean and what can be expected of victims. And I'll just say, from me speaking with Circuit Attorney Kim Gardner, and how she said that her vision would be to work with these grant fundings, they would definitely not be called victims anymore. They would be more like survivors. It would be protection and empowerment. And so it would be survivors for our vulnerable and our people that have been victimized here in the city. So I think the other point that you were speaking of, Debbie Allen from the CJCC mentioned that they are already working on getting a Crimes Victims' Rights Committee started for the CJCC. So that work clearly is time, maybe past time for that to start as well. So with that, I want to thank again all my colleagues for your great questions, Brother Khatib for coming on today and speaking to this. And with that, I ask for us to pass out board bill number 4 with a do pass recommendation.
Second.
Madam
Previous
Clerk,
roll.
well,
No.
we got Pam Boyd, Alderwoman Boyd.
I rescind it.
Alderwoman Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Boyd,
Aye.
Alderwoman Davis,
Yeah, I know. Aye.
Alderwoman Howard,
Aye.
Alderwoman Spencer, Alderwoman Boyd,
Aye.
Alderman Bosley,
Aye.
Alderman Muhammad,
Aye.
Alderman Oldenburg,
Aye.
Alderman Ryan,
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard,
Aye.
Alderman Page,
Aye.
Chairman Vaquero,
Aye.
Alderwoman Spencer.
Aye.
12 aye votes.
12 aye votes. We've passed out board bill number 4 with a do pass recommendation. We're going to move on to board bill number 12. Alderwoman Carol Howard, do you want to speak on your board bill?
Board bill number 12 is simply would impose or continue a moratorium on the issuance of packaged liquor license for any currently non-licensed premises in the 14th Ward Liquor Control District for a period of 3 years. I've had this in effect probably for several years, I would say at least 8 years now. And I think it helps to avoid some nuisance properties. So if anyone has any questions, I'm open for questions.
I guess we can run down the roll. So Vice Chairman Boyd, any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Alderwoman Davis, any questions?
No questions.
Alderwoman Spencer, any questions?
No questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Alderwoman Pam Boyd, any questions?
No questions, Mr. Chair.
Alderman Bosley, any questions? He might be in and out again. Alderman
No
Muhammad.
question.
Alderman Muhammad.
No questions, Mr. Chair.
Alderman Oldenburg.
No, Mayor, no questions, sir.
Okay, we got that. Alderman Oldenburg.
No questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Alderman Ryan.
No questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Alderman Clark Hubbard.
No questions, thank you.
Sorry, Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Alderman Page.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No questions.
And I have no questions. Seeing that, I'll entertain a motion that we pass Board Bill 12 out with a due pass recommendation. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, so I'll make the motion. Alderman Muhammad was the second. Is there a call for previous roll?
Previous roll.
Hearing no objection to previous roll, we've passed out Board Bill number 12 with a due pass recommendation.
Thank you, colleagues.
Board Bill number 19. I was asked by the mayor. She called me herself personally, so giving that consideration, I am holding it till next week. She has some thoughts that she'd like to add to that. And so it wasn't a staff member that called me. I'm going to hold it. Otherwise, I probably would not have. And I was asked by Alderwoman Christina Gracias to hold Board Bill number 12. So, Mr. Vice Chairman, you need to take over the meeting for Board Bill number 23. And
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I'm having a hard time hearing. What did you say?
Oh, I think since Board Bill 23, I'm the sponsor, I think you would have to take over.
Okay.
So I think the vice chair has computer issues.
I'm sorry, I'm having a little technical difficulties. Oh, we are now getting ready to talk about Board Bill 23. Is that correct?
Yeah, 23.
Well, I recognize it's been on Board 23.
Okay, thank you for recognizing me on Board Bill 23. What I think I'm going to do, actually Mary Reese helped me with some notes, but the city's received $468,701,000 from the United States Department of Mental Health relief fund for COVID-19 expenses, authorizing the Director of Public Safety or the Chief so what I'd like to do is bring the Director of Public Safety and the Fire Chief, if they're there, to speak on this, and then kind of move from there.
Okay, Dr. Dan Ison, I saw him on here. Why don't we go ahead and recognize Dr. Dan Ison, Public Safety Director? Dr. Ison.
Yes, Alderman Boyd, thank you. This money is COVID relief money that was appropriated for the St. Louis Fire Department. They plan to use this money to replace vehicles that have been damaged. So that is what the monies are going for. They have a couple of EMS vehicles, a couple of other vehicles that they want to replace with this money.
So, and I was wrong, it was 468,701, not million. I'm not reading my own writing well.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, is the Fire Chief here? I didn't see the Fire Chief. Or I'll just ask Dr. Ison, is the Fire Chief going to be present and make a presentation, or will you just handle this?
Yeah, I was just going to handle it.
Okay. We'll just go down the road and ask committee members if they have any questions. Alderman Davis?
Good morning, Dr. Eisen.
Good
My
morning.
question is very simple. We're replacing funds that we used previously so that we can attain these vehicles, because I don't want the public to misunderstand. Because if we were just taking COVID funds and buying new vehicles, that wouldn't sit too well. So can you
Right.
explain it further?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's replacing existing funds for vehicles, is my understanding, but I will check. It's my understanding that this money was not appropriated for vehicles. These were vehicles that had been damaged during this time period, and the fire chief wanted to use it to replace these vehicles.
Because I know a
But I
lot of
can check
funds.
and make
Yeah,
sure.
please. A lot of funds were used out of our general fund during the pandemic in order to make sure that our citizens had the appropriate services and PPE supplies. And we have to replenish those funds and then go back and spend them on the items that we neglected. And so I don't want the public to think that we would just be spending money for vehicles versus maybe something else dealing with COVID.
Okay. No, I will check.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, Alderwoman Howard.
I kind of have a question related to the Alderwoman from the 19th question. So we're using this to replace vehicles that have been damaged?
Yes.
And which would these be, just ambulance type vehicles?
Yeah, it would be an ambulance and then just regular response vehicles. So, of course, a full, fire truck would cost a lot more than $400,000.
And yeah, I get that's what my other, and then we just appropriated money to buy several emergency vehicles for the fire department. And I'm just a bit confused by this. What we're replacing or we're fixing?
My understanding, replacing the vehicles is what it's for.
I'm just wondering, for $400,000 with the cost of an outfitted even ambulance would be, I don't know what an ambulance costs, but it seems like it yeah. Anyway, I'm very unclear about this, how this
Okay.
might be appropriated. Okay. If you can lend any clarity, I'd appreciate it.
I would think it has to do more with the stuff that was used, like transporting people, the different meds, the different things that were used during COVID that were expended on COVID, transporting the patients, and that I think was more my understanding. It's reimbursement backwards for not so much for vehicles. I guess they can use it how they want, but it's reimbursement because they were transporting them. There was fuel involved. There was manpower involved. There was meds involved, and that's what I believe that this is. I don't think it's like a vehicle that was crashed during the transporting, if I understand this correctly. I think if the fire chief, I could try to text him, but that's my understanding. There was a lot of expense transporting the patients, and it's reimbursement for not vehicles that were wrecked, but it's from expenditures that were expended on COVID during the time period that, which is still going on actually, that they're transporting patients using equipment. I mean, they're using oxygen, they're using different meds and stuff. So that's my understanding. And Dr. Isom, you could tell me if I'm wrong, but I believe, and I could check with the fire chief, but I do believe it's reimbursement of of equipment used during COVID and transporting.
Yeah, Alderman, I texted the chief. I'm gonna have him come on and describe the specifics of it.
Thank you.
Okay, Alderwoman Howard, anything else?
No, I just want to thank Dr. Isom for being here and contributing to the discussion here. I appreciate that. And it is taking his time out to be with us today. Thank you so much.
Okay, Alderwoman Spencer.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Good morning, Dr. Isom. Thank you for being with us today, and thank you for your service to the city.
Thank you.
Looking at the board bill here, it looks like it's for contracting on services, but you know, I think it would probably behoove us to just get to the bottom of exactly what the funds are going to be for, as the Alderwoman from the 14th pointed out. You know, if we're going to be purchasing new vehicles, I know there's been some discussion on the types of ambulances that we should be purchasing, the smaller ones versus the larger ones. I think that those are conversations that we should be having because it expands or contracts what we're actually able to do in-house versus what we need to contract out for services for. And I know that the emergency response vehicle servicing can actually be a financial benefit to the city if we have the services in place to do that. So if we're purchasing those vehicles, I think it'd be worthy to have those conversations. So getting to the bottom of it here would be helpful. That's all I have, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Dr. Isom, for being with us this morning.
Thank you.
Hey, Alderwoman Pam Boyd.
I kind of support what the previous speakers had said, and I'm just not comfortable because it just seems like we don't really know what they're doing and what's it for. And so I feel more comfortable if the fire chief would be there so he could speak on this, because it seems like people are just pulling straws and trying to guess, and I just don't feel comfortable. I would rather if we just have him here to speak on that so we can get clarity on what are we actually asking for. Thank you.
Okay, Alderman Bosley.
I don't have any questions at this time. Thank you.
Okay, Alderman Muhammad.
No questions, Mr. Chair.
Alderman Oldenburg.
No questions that haven't been asked previously. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Okay, Alderman Narayan.
No questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Alderman Clark Hubbard.
No additional questions. Thank you.
Alderman Page.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No questions. I'll await further clarifications as indicated earlier.
Has the fire chief joined us?
He's coming on right now.
Okay, I'm just going to move on. Let's take up Board Bill number 22, sponsored by Alderwoman Christina Gracia.
Oh, sorry, that one is wanted to be held by the sponsor. The next one on down the list would be 26. 22 is held by the sponsor.
Got you. Well, you got it back, Mr. Chairman. You're in the seat.
Okay. Only for one bill. And then the fire chief might as well hang on because we're gonna need Dr. Dan and everyone on for 27. So I want to recognize then Alderman John Muhammad on Board Bill 26. Alderman Muhammad, you're recognized on Board Bill 26.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will hold Board Bill 26, sir.
Okay, we're gonna hold that. I do like, just while we're waiting for the chief to come, oh, there's a chief. So actually, Vice Chair, you're back on board for 23 and 27, so, and the chief's here. And we're gonna hold
Okay,
26.
so we're gonna come back to, the fire chief is here.
Yeah, he's here now.
We're gonna come back to Board Bill 23. Fire Chief Jenkinson, welcome. Fire Chief.
Let me, okay, I'm on mute. I was muted.
Okay.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. So we were discussing Board Bill 23. There was some confusion as to exactly how the funds are being appropriated. So can you give us a presentation on how you plan to expend these funds?
Yes. We actually got 3 different appropriations from the government for the CARES and the response that we provided for the COVID over the last year. The first 2 have already been appropriated, and they were used for medical devices, some instrumentation, some gear that we needed to provide for the safety of the EMS and the firefighters that are working on COVID patients. That's already been used. Then we got a third provision, if you will, from the government, which came out to $468,701, which is what this appropriation is for. The first 2 appropriations, some of it was used for, because I canceled all the vacations, so they did use some of that money to pay for the vacation time and overtime that I canceled. On this one here, we lost 4 EMS units during the COVID due to hit and run type accidents. We also lost a response vehicle that EMS uses. 704 got hit, and that one got totaled. So the bulk of this money, almost all of it, is going to be used for replacement of vehicles, ambulances, and 1 response vehicle that a supervisor uses. It won't pay for anywhere close to all of it, but it's going to be put towards vehicles. Average ambulance to be about $270,000. A response vehicle that the supervisors use are running right around 54 to 55. This depends on what this year's model is going to go for, but that's what this money is going to be used for.
Alderman on the committee and Alderwoman Davis.
Thank you. I guess I still don't have clarity, but at least I have an understanding of the items and their use. I think you started off by saying that they are federal funds that have been allocated and that those funds can be used to purchase these vehicles. So that's, as long as that's identified in the use of the funds, I'm fine with it. But as we move forward, and we know that we're going to be dealing with a lot of this based on when we are spending the 500 million, we need to also clarify a little bit more in our bills. Use the verbiage that came with the funds to identify how it can be used and its origin. So I do appreciate what I've received thus far. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Howard.
So how many ambulances did we buy last year? Didn't we allocate money last year or the year before?
The year before, we bought 5 ambulances added to the fleet.
And so one of them was wrecked during the COVID crisis.
No, we had 3 of those wrecked. 3 of them were hit broadside and rolled over. And I also had a supervisor's vehicle. They drive a Tahoe, which was hit and rolled over and totaled as well.
So we're going to be able to replace all those vehicles or repair them?
We're repairing some of them, and hopefully we'll have enough money to replace one and also replace the supervisor's vehicle.
Okay, okay. Because an ambulance costs probably 200,000 at least. I'm just guessing. How
All the
much?
equipment.
I'm sorry, say that again.
I said about 270,000.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you. That helps a whole lot. Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, Alderwoman Spencer.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Thank you, Chief. Good to see you this morning. Thank you for being here to help clear this up.
Good to see you.
Really helpful for you to jump on so quickly. The 3 vehicles that were hit in 1 year, that's a lot. Is that unusual?
You know, it was an unusual year, and most of these vehicles they were broadsided, uninsured motorist. In two of the accidents, I believe the people got out and ran, and we weren't even able to find them in a stolen vehicle. So it's been a very trying year.
So, Chief, that was my next question. All 3 of these were hit by uninsured vehicles. Is that right? There was no insurance. Sure.
None. Unlicensed vehicle, stolen vehicle.
Stolen vehicles.
Yes.
This is so devastating. What an enormous amount of expense. And, to think we should have at least be able to collect some insurance from it. So this is really sobering. That was the question. I was hoping that we had some insurance to collect on it, but it sounds like we don't. Thanks, Chief. That's all I have, Mr. Vice Chair.
Okay, Alderwoman Pam Boyd.
No, thank you. Alderwoman Davis and Spencer kind of asked the questions that I had the concern about. So thank you.
Okay, Alderman Bosley.
Sir, I don't have any questions at the moment.
Okay, Alderman Muhammad.
No questions, Mr. Chair. My questions have been previously asked. Thank you, Chief.
Okay, Alderman Oldenburg.
I have nothing further. Thank you.
Alderman Ryan.
No questions. Thank you.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
No questions, thank you.
Alderman Page. No questions. I'd just like to offer thanks to Chief Jenkerson for bringing clarity to the matters of this expenditure.
Okay, I appreciate it. Sorry, it took me a while to get on. I didn't see the email come over. I was in another meeting.
Okay, Chief, I just have one question. Generally, the board bills that's coming on behalf of your office normally have attachments on how we're allocating the funds. I didn't notice an attachment to this bill.
You know,
and that's causing some of the confusion, I believe, because now it's kind of like, you can tell us, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. You can tell us what you're going to spend it on, and then theoretically you could spend it on something different because there's no attachment that really spells it out, which causes confusion.
Okay, understood. I can always add a statement to that and send that down. I think some of the confusion here came about because of the changing of the administration, and particularly inside the public safety office. The last couple of requests and ordinances were written by Charlene Deacon, I believe. So I think that might have been some of the issue with the change in administration. But if you want me to provide a written document allocating where I want these funds to go, I will do that. That won't be a problem.
Okay, Chief, I would respectfully ask that you do that and submit it to the chairman, who can send it out to the rest of the committee.
Okay, what I'll do,
and the full board.
I'll submit that through my chain of command. So I'll bring that down to the Director of Public Safety and have him forward that on to you.
Sounds like a winner.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, you recognize the close on Board Bill 23.
Certainly want to take it. So I would ask that we would pass this out with favorable consideration with a due pass. And I would also ask that Dr. Dan Isom, this has got to come to a full board vote anyway. prior to that, before Friday, can you please just submit a letter to either to me or actually to the vice chair, and they'll send that out to the committee just for clarification on where the money's going to be spent. Having said that, I would ask for a favorable vote in that we pass board bill number 23 out with a do pass recommendation.
I make a motion to pass board bill 23 out for due pass recommendation.
Second.
Previous roll. Hearing no objection to previous roll, board bill 23 comes out of committee with due pass recommendation. Mr. Chairman, you're back in the chairman's seat.
No, I'm not. We're at board bill 27. That's it's another one of mine, and I need
okay.
Dan Isom, do you prefer to be called Commissioner Isom, Dr. Dan Isom, Dan Isom? Dan, do you have a preferred title?
No, I don't. Whatever is customary in this setting. I would imagine.
It would be Public Safety Director Isom. Okay. Vice Chairman, you're back in the driver's seat here. I think he might have stepped away.
Oh, I'm here.
I can't do.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, board bill 27 is my bill again.
Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, so I was saying that, Mr. Chairman, you're recognized on board bill 27.
Okay. So board bill 27 is an ordinance authorizing the police commissioner on behalf of the city of St. Louis to execute a grant agreement with the Missouri Office of Criminal Victim Services to fund the protection program for witnesses, violent grant program. And again, we have Chief Isom to talk on this, and we also have Public Safety Director Dan Isom to speak on this. If either one of you would like to talk on this,
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'll be glad to speak on it if you don't mind.
Yes.
Okay, very good. So last year in the emergency session held by the state legislature, there was monies passed for victim, or rather witness protection, particularly on homicides is when it would be most utilized. And so what the state recommended is that we actually get some money ahead of time. In other words, it's a process that you can't necessarily get the funds immediately. So they said that it would be a good idea to go ahead and get the funds early, because once an incident happens, if there's a major shooting or something today, and folk are we're trying to scramble around, we're trying to get folks relocated in that so that there won't be retaliatory shootings. We would need the money in hand in order to make those arrangements. That's what the $5,000 allocation is per this request. But again, there's a few $100,000 out there to be utilized in instances like these.
Okay. Let's go down the line and ask the Alderman for questions. Alderwoman Davis.
Thank you, Chief Hayden. This is truly needed. And I do understand that we have some partnerships in the community that can assist us to make these dollars go even further. And one of the things that I want to make sure is, again, that we let the community know about what we're doing, because I never see anything that's publicized that talks about the assistance that comes from our police department, our circuit attorney's office. And that's the hard part of this job. People don't necessarily want to support things and or be a part of things because they don't know. And so I really would appreciate us making sure that these things are known to the community. And I thank you all for your due diligence and the state of Missouri for making this available immediately. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Alderwoman Howard.
Good morning, Chief Hayden. I have
Morning.
one question. How are you?
I'm doing well, ma'am. And yourself?
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
I'm well. Is this just, I'm understanding from what you said that there may be more money available, that this is sort of the down payment and there will be more money to follow?
Yes, ma'am. So this was like it's approximately, I think the whole bill may be well over $1 million, but it's to be shared between the St. Louis Police Department, the Kansas City Police Department, and any of the other ones. I know Cape Girardeau was part of the decision making. But point being is that for us to be able to call on these funds when needed, like I said, you got to be able to have money on hand. If we want to relocate somebody or put them in a hotel or something tonight, we have to have the money in hand, as opposed to going through the process. We don't have any money to pay ahead of time, and so we're asking for these funds ahead of time so that if we have an incident, we can respond accordingly. And we will ask again. And so we haven't used this up or anything, but certainly we will continue to ask as the need suggests.
So there is more money in the pipeline.
There's more money in the pipeline. We just have, each time we have to go to the Department of Public Safety, or they've created a unit, Missouri Office of Crime Victim Services, at the state level. So each time we'd have to ask them for replenishment of those funds.
Okay. So how long does that take for you to receive those funds?
That's a good question. I believe they can get them to you rather quickly. It's just that if you need them tonight, it's probably within a week or so they can get them to you.
Okay. Yeah, I just noticed that the application was the 28th of April. So I guess it's pretty expedient on how they get them out. But I think as the Alderwoman from the 19th said, we need to make this knowledge out there, because I think it would help in maybe ameliorating some of the high crime and the deaths we're seeing out there publicly. So I sure think I would hope that this helps alleviate some of those circumstances of people not being able to bear witness. So thank you so much for your time today.
Yes, ma'am.
That's all I have.
Okay, Alderwoman Spencer.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Thank you so much, Chief, for joining us today. I'm glad to know there's more money coming from the state of Missouri than $5,000, which is a drop in the bucket for what we need, of course, but I'm glad that we're making some of these funds available now. Thank you for your efforts to do that, and thank you for the explanation. I have no further questions, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you.
Okay, Alderwoman Pam Boyd.
Thank you, Chief, for coming to the meeting and speaking. And I guess my question is back to what Alderwoman Davis was stating. I know the circuit attorney has a program like that also. So you are working in partnership with this, so we can make sure that people are taken care of, one, and then two, how are we getting the information out to the community?
So yes, so question number one, we're working in partnership with the circuit attorney's office on this project. In fact, I had called her while we were at that meeting to get those funds secured, and so we're in conversation about these particular funds. And I think what we should do is do some type of public service announcement, or at least tweet on a regular basis about the availability of funds. I see that as something that's not popularly known, obviously, and so we can do a better job of sharing the information so that people can rely on it and possibly willing to come forward based on the sharing of the information.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief. I appreciate your efforts. I do not have any questions. Can you hear me?
Yeah. So
No?
you have questions?
Maybe.
I'm sorry. Are you asking me a question, sir? It broke up.
Yeah, my signal was really, really bad.
Okay, we're gonna call it Alderman.
Mr. Chair, did you signal for me, sir? Mr. Chairman?
He's froze.
I think with the weather, we're having some, a lot of people are having difficulties.
Am I frozen or?
You're frozen.
You're frozen, sir.
We can hear you now.
Okay, I'm back. I was.
No questions, Mr. Chair.
Did you have questions?
No questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Bosley didn't have any questions. Thank you, Alderman Oldenburg.
No questions.
Okay, Alderman Narayan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Chief Hayden. Just one quick question. Typically, what kind of award would someone who utilized this program get? How much money basically in order to relocate? I don't know, the $5,000. I'm just trying to figure out how far that will go.
Sure. So a lot of times, so for example, the most critical times with respect to, let's say, a homicide, are probably right around the time that it happens. And then the next time will be when there's trials related to it. And so if for let's say that I was one that there was something happening tonight and we were wanting to get relocated, but we needed some hotel space between now and the time that somebody might move in with a cousin in Memphis or something like that. So, I guess $100 a night for, so that'd be $500 or $600 per person the first time through, or per room. And then once we can get some relocation done, make further arrangements, and then similar monies on the way back during the trial or what have you. And so, it could easily be, $1,000 or so per person. But at the same time, everybody does it, so it's not always as critical for everybody that's there. Some people, naturally, if something is domestic or everybody knows everybody, it's not as critical as I'm worried about somebody down the street coming to get me. So, it kind of varies, but $100 per night or so would probably be how much ever time we need to keep the person out of pocket, about $100 a night.
Okay, thank you for that. And I have nothing further, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Alderman Clark Hubbard.
Okay, thank you. No questions.
Alderman Page.
Chief Hayden, thanks so much for the clarifications you provided. No further questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Chief, I have a question. So help me understand the difference between what the Circuit Attorney Office does with witness protection and what this program would do.
Surely. So I'm not as sure about additional monies that she has acquired for, through some grant or what have you, but this is the main fund by which the witnesses are protected. And so it would be, we would have conversations about who needs to be relocated or what have you. So we would have input from the Circuit Attorney's Office as they interview persons with respect to the case. And so, they would have ongoing input, but I'm not too sure that she has a large pool of money from which to draw on under these circumstances. So it's certainly something that's going to be benefiting both the police department and the Circuit Attorney's Office. I think this is the biggest pool, if there's a distinction.
Yeah, I'm not, I guess I'm just trying to figure out, I always thought, pardon my ignorance, but I always thought witness protection was a role of the Circuit Attorney's Office and that they managed all of that. So are you saying they manage and then the police also manages a witness protection program too?
I think, I'm saying that the Department of Public Safety has the St. Louis Police Department requesting the funds, and we would work with the Circuit Attorney's Office to determine who needs to be protected, if you will. But the oversight of the monies is the Department of Public Safety at the state level, and the police department could ask. Naturally, we would be the persons most readily involved with the victim per se, in order to present them to the Circuit Attorney's Office. In fact, if it's the next day, if you will, tonight might be very critical. And so I think that's why we're the point people, but it wouldn't be done outside of the involvement of the Circuit Attorney's Office.
Okay, so for clarity, who's ultimately responsible for the witness?
Well, ultimately,
And
I guess
protection.
we share the responsibility of protecting the witness. But the money is going, the biggest pot of money is going to come from the state. Like I said, matter of fact, I don't think that Circuit Attorney Gardner had much funds at all prior to our request at the state level. I don't think that she was given a significant budget for this possibility. So when they approved it, when the state level approved it, they wanted the Director of Public Safety from the state to oversee it, and they asked the police department to request the funds.
Okay, so I get all of that. I'm still just a little bit confused as to who is directly responsible for the oversight of these funds and the witness.
Directly
protection.
responsible for the oversight would be the Department of Public Safety at the state.
Okay, the State Department.
Sandy
Okay.
Carson is the person that communicated this information to me about the availability of funds, about pre-securing funds for the project, those types of. So I got my information directly from Director of Public Safety at the state, and then again, I'm not sure what additional monies that the circuit attorney has, but the victims and witnesses' first contact will be with the police department, and we will be the ones that would be the closest to taking responsibility for securing witnesses and victims when that comes up in the conversation about their fear of retaliation during the process.
Alderman Boyd, just to piggyback on what Chief Hayden said, I spoke to the Public Safety Director, Sandy Carston, a couple of days ago about this issue. But to Chief Hayden's point, I would hope there would be flexibility, because there may be some circumstances where the police show up to a scene of a violent incident where they might want to make the determination then that the victim and the witness need to be protected outside of even talking to the circuit attorney's office, because that might be the next day. And so I hope there is the flexibility that the police department could keep people safe immediately. And that's why I think these funds are so important. And that's why they are under sort of the direct control of the police department, because as you all might know, the immediacy of trying to get people out of that environment is very critical.
Okay, all right. I think that's a little more helpful. I appreciate that. It looks like Alderwoman Davis has a follow-up question. Alderwoman Davis.
I just wanted to ask if we could look at an opportunity for collaboration to be done seamless. My understanding from all that you all have taught me through the police department, the state level of understanding public safety, your top law enforcement officer in a municipality would be your prosecuting attorney. But the most important thing is that you work in conjunction. And so if you all can work this out where we know what the process is going to be, that you are training the officers as well as those who will handle the cases to understand this. And I know in the past we used to have our prosecutors on 24-hour calling, which meant that someone would show up at the scene of an incident so that you all could work together from the point of the crime. So hopefully we can get back to that and we can join forces. And yes, the prosecuting attorney has a large pot of funds that she has acquired, and I do need everybody to work in conjunction. This is not an either or. I don't believe that you all think that either, but I think we need to have clear understanding so that an alderperson knows process, the public knows process, and it can run seamlessly. Thank you.
Okay, Alderwoman Carol Howard, you recognized for a follow-up.
I just have a question, and I was hoping maybe this would be asked. you have $5,000 now. Do you have to reapply every time? Or is this, I guess, and then, looking at what the circuit attorney, CA's office has, it's like, how are we going to coordinate this to make sure people know this is available for their protection, and that, maybe we can get to having witnesses come forward and, solving some of this math, these lives that are being lost nightly in our city. And that's, our primary concern here is to make sure that we have public safety and people are safe. We need to address this boldly. So, can you tell me how this is going to be applied for each time? I mean, $5,000 with the amount of crime we have going on doesn't seem like it'll go far. And unless we work together, efforts aren't going to be fruitful.
Yes, ma'am. We will have to apply for it each time, but I think we can certainly, $5,000 may not be the limit. And so I think the key is that as we use these funds, we'll ask for more. I think that, I believe that Sandy Carson has arranged that if there's an extreme emergency, that a phone call would suffice with a promise to fill out the proper paperwork. So I don't think that's going to be an issue. But again, I think that certainly this is something that the circuit attorney and I can work on insofar as public, making it known to the public as, either a public service announcement or what have you, that we regularly post this information so that people will know that it's available. I agree with you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Mr. Chairman, you are recognized to close on Board Bill 27.
So just quickly, I'm going to close fast on this, but quickly, it's my understanding that this money is to be used even beforehand, only because, and Chief, you could tell me if I'm wrong, but if something's going on at the moment before that's even been referred to the prosecutor, where you need to separate someone from another, this funding is used to say, okay, even in domestic violence, where somebody said, I have nowhere to go. Okay, we'll put you up in a hotel for the next 2 nights. I think that's the point, that's what I understood it to be. And so it isn't actually someone that's being prosecuted. They haven't been even, the charges haven't even been referred yet, is my understanding. It's more dealing with an immediate situation to keep witnesses apart, to help detectives so I mean, that I just, so maybe that's just my understanding. That's what I believe.
That's correct.
Having said that, I'm going to close on Board Bill 27, and I would ask for a favorable do pass recommendation from the committee. And so I'll make my own.
Second. Request for previous roll.
Previous roll.
Hearing no objection to previous roll, Board Bill 27 comes out of committee with due pass recommendation.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, you're back in the seat.
Okay, and we do have one speaker on this to be sworn in, and Vice Chairman Boyd, don't go anywhere because the resolution comes up next. So, Madam Clerk, would you, I guess, and again, this is just for my own whatever.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Are we on, what are we on now? What's before the committee?
Board Bill 29, I believe is the next.
Okay,
one.
29, okay. All right.
And lastly, we have the resolution, which I'm going to need you on. And I guess just from clarity, do I, from Mr. Clerk, do I swear the person wanting to speak before or when they're ready to speak, or at what point? Like, do I just swear them in now and be done with that? It's kind of a new process and I'm just learning, so.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, you have your expert witnesses who do not have to be. The others who you can do them at the very beginning, or you can do them at the point that you call them to speak.
And I believe there's just one person that's not an expert that wants to speak on this. And So I'll swear that person in, and then under the rules, is it that that person has 3 minutes to speak on it?
The chair can set how many it is. It says up to 5 minutes, and then any additional time that the chair wishes to give.
Okay, okay. So what I'm gonna do, Madam Clerk, we have one person wanting to speak on this, and maybe swear him in now. Then I'm gonna go to Alderman Muhammad to speak on the bill, then I'll come to the,
Mr. Chair,
yes, sir, yes.
I would like to hold Board Bill 29 as well.
You wanna hold 29?
I do.
Okay, then there will be no need to have a speaker.
Very good.
Um, uh, So, so there's no speakers on that. Then we're gonna move on to, and I'll thank the speakers for showing up, but it's held. Then we're gonna move on to the resolution number 9. I do want to clarify, this is actually money from last year. Dan Isom, Chief, and all, you don't really have to stay for this, but you are certainly welcome, because one of the things, the Board of Aldermen will say where we want the money to go. The Public Safety Director has to make sure that money goes where we ask. So I don't know if you're familiar with the process, and we could always meet. So you're certainly welcome to stay with us. Maybe it might help you understand the process. Maybe you know it.
Yeah, I'll stay on and listen.
I will admit, after 12 years, I'm still trying to figure out. So this was my screw up from last year. I should have did the resolution last year to put in committee where the money's to be spent. It's a little backwards, but we did the resolution. Again, this is for last year's money. There also will be an additional resolution made for this year's money. So this is the $1 million that we appropriate last year. We didn't appropriate it, but this is the money for the appropriation of last year's funds. There will also be a resolution put together for the appropriation of this year's funds. And Vice Chairman, who is also the chairman of the subcommittee, it's my understanding, and again, this is only the second or third year that I've done this, or we've done this. I think once we recommend it, then I know the Public Safety Director makes sure it goes where we ask. Does this go back to the full board, or is it just done as a resolution and comes out of us?
Once it's passed out of committee, it's pretty much a done deal, and we report back to the full board our decision.
Okay, so just for the new members, and I kind of knew that, but for the new members of the Public Safety Committee, once, this is just like the parks. Once the resolution, once everybody agrees on this, it goes to the full board, but it's not voted on by the full board. It is just basically reported back as to what happened. So I'm gonna, since I was not on the subcommittee, we're gonna go back to Vice Chairman Boyd, who was on the subcommittee, and any members that you want to have speak. And I'm basically going to listen. And I think there are aldermen that want to, speak on behalf of certain groups. So I'm going to basically mute myself and have you take over from this again. Hopefully.
Where is he?
Yeah.
Oh.
Vice Chairman Boyd, are you around? I hope. Yes, there he is. Okay.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm here. I was just told by one of the members of the subcommittee that this is not the right.
This is not, I'm sorry. You froze up there.
I'm asking that we hold resolution number 9. This is not the right attachment.
Oh, it's not the right attachment. Okay. Okay, so we're going to hold resolution number 9. So what I can say is it's important that we get this resolution out and that money distributed. What I'd like to do is, if everybody's fine with it, we're going to have board bill number 19, 22, 26, 29, and resolution 9 put back on for the very earliest possible day next week, unless everybody feels that we really need to get the resolution out, and we could try to get another date this week. And just anybody can just comment. I just say.
Oh, okay, I have a comment, Mr. Chairman. So the resolution, so you're saying the one that was in the drive wasn't right, and then I also want to make sure that the constituents that we had on the line today that have been on the meeting this entire time still get to speak, even though if we're going to now hold that one. And then since Public Safety Director, the administration was still on the call, I wanted to ask if they knew if there were any funds that were not spent from last year's Prop S allocation.
So the list I got, there's what, 2 speakers that wanted to speak on this?
Yes.
Okay. And if we swear them in, I'm sure we're fine with having them speak unless the vice chairman says.
I'm ready.
Thank you.
I bet you are.
So let Madam Clerk, would you swear in so that we can, are these considered expert testimonies or not? Speakers, they don't have to be sworn in.
Speakers, they're speakers.
I'm happy to be sworn in.
Okay, Madam Clerk, would you please swear in the 2 speakers, witnesses?
I don't have any information to swear me in. Is it something on the drive?
That's a good question. That was a rule that we made up at the Board of Aldermen, that everyone speaking now has to be sworn in, given their name. I think I might have something on it.
Now, I do have the public hearing procedures to read the 2 paragraphs.
Why don't we do that? And
Chairman Vaccaro, this is Alderman Gracia. Permission to.
I'll go, just jump in. We're okay. This is gonna be more of an open discussion because we're not here in the bill or the resolution, and certainly it should be an open discussion. So anybody.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to mention quickly that the new rule really simply says that the chair can say something as easily as, do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth? So if that's helpful to you, that's the only language that you really need to use.
Okay, is it the chairman that swears him? I thought it was the clerk.
It's the chairman.
Okay, well then I'll do it. Let's give this a try. Mrs. Ryan.
Yes.
I guess raise your right hand, and do you promise you whatever you're going to tell us is the truth?
Yes, sir.
Cool. And we had one other speaker somewhere.
Ferguson.
Oh, there you are. And you promised, Ms. Ferguson, that you're going to tell us the truth.
I do.
You are so good. Anyway, okay. So, and since I'm going to, Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, why don't you let them speak in the order, and why don't you speak however, and we're just going to kind of listen.
No, it's not me. I just want to make sure the floor was open for them before we were closing out and pulling things back. So, you know.
So, okay, Mrs. Ryan, why don't you go ahead and tell us what you have there?
Okay. Well, first of all, I just want to say I'm nervous, so I hope you forgive me for
Oh,
that.
no, you're fine. We're all, we're all friends.
Yeah. I'm with the Roosevelt Community Council. We are a very small, all volunteer group that supports Roosevelt High School, which is located about 2 blocks from my house. I live right off of South Grand. We've been supporting Roosevelt and its students for the last 14 years. We've applied for Prop S funds to fund an after-school program at the high school for the last 11 years or thereabouts. This year we weren't on the list. We're not on Resolution 9 on the list. And I'll tell you, I was very dismayed. We didn't spend our 2020 funds yet. We've only spent about $5,000 of that so far. Actually, it's probably a little more because I don't have the billing from the district yet. But we weren't able to operate in 2020 because SLPS shut down its buildings around March 13th of last year. We were still using 2019 funds at that point. The reason being that we wanted to have an a summer school program. We've done that the last couple of years. And summer school costs about $25,000. Our school year program is after school. The summer program is like a most of the day program. Of course, that didn't happen in 2020. So we are now using our 2020 funds, which are awarded on a calendar year basis, but we got permission through the Office of Public Safety and through the comptroller to carry those funds through to June 30, 2021. So we're using 2020 in 2021 because we have permission. Otherwise, we would have been cut off. And we're planning to use them for after school till the end of the school year, and then the first couple weeks of the summer school program. The district does not offer summer school except for credit recovery. For high school kids, it's credit recovery only. Ms. Dancy, who's the principal at Roosevelt, wants to offer an enrichment program, and that would be our program for other kids who aren't doing credit recovery. We would be offering a snack and a hot lunch through the district, so that cost is covered by the district. Basically, our after-school program is the only source of funds for Roosevelt High School to offer a non-sports after-school program at Roosevelt. And we're hoping, I don't know what the actual list that was supposed to be attached to Resolution 9 looks like, but we're hoping that we can receive funding again. It's important to the kids, and that's what we care about is the kids. So I do want to point out, there's a couple things that have come up over the years that were sort of misconceptions about our program. At times we've heard it said that Roosevelt is a white school because it's on the south side. The student body at the school is 85 to 90% African American. So it's not a white school. The other thing is our program expenses, the only overhead that we have is a 4% fee that we pay to the St. Louis Public Schools Foundation. They handle our money, they're our fiscal agent, and we pay them a 4% fee. All of our other expenses are program expenses, primarily paying teachers to serve as facilitators for our after-school clubs and the summer school clubs and activities. We found early on that the students have a relationship with the teacher, and that's how we can involve the students. We try to bring in people that from the outside that they don't have a relationship with, the kids don't understand what we're doing or why they should be involved, why they should care, and they don't get involved. The only other thing I wanted to say was that, we work, I personally volunteer my time. I do the billing, I prepare the grant application. We work with this SLPS to do the staffing. Our community council provides oversight to the program. We do meet monthly. We have 10 to 12 people, very loyal people who are involved. It's not always easy working with SLPS, but we've been doing it for a long time, and we want to be able to keep on doing it through this program because it's important for the kids. So that's all.
Well, thank you. And sorry, not Alderwoman, Mrs. Ferguson.
Mr. Chair, if I may just interrupt, I hate to interrupt, but I think it would be pertinent to know if we have the corrected list, because I believe Ms. Ryan and I'm sorry, Ms. Ferguson, I don't know, but I can assume that maybe you're here to advocate for funding for your organization, and I don't know that we have the corrected list before us to know whether what organizations we're funding, Mr. Chair.
And we don't have it in front of us, so that's why we're holding it. But we.
So I hate to have, I know that these women have spent 2 hours now waiting for an opportunity to speak, and I don't want to preclude that or inhibit it in any way, but I would like to know if we're funding the organizations that they represent. I'm sure they would like to know that as well.
So there's two different things. One is the funding of last year's money. So, because I didn't do the resolution. I mean, I take full responsibility. It was supposed to be done by resolution. We had the committee hearing. We had a subcommittee. Then when we were going to report back, they said, well, you never did the resolution to start with. Absolutely my mistake. So this is cleaning up last year's, but it's being held. Now, this year, we have the same $1 million to appropriate. So we're going to do this again. So it's not going to hurt them to speak, even if they're not on this list. They certainly could be on the money for this year. So, if you can understand it.
I do. So
what we're doing now should have been done last year.
So, sorry, Mr. Chairman, just for ultra clarification here. The list that we have before us, does it accurately reflect what is to be funded? So, for example, Ms. Ryan was advocating for Roosevelt's after-school program, one that's been in existence for some time, which has been regularly funded with Prop S, was not included on the list. And do we know if, and Ms. Ferguson, I'm so sorry, I don't know which organization you're here to represent, but just so that there's an ease of minds here or clarity of what we are proposing to fund with last year's funds or not.
I don't know. And what we'll probably do is come back to Vice Chairman Boyd. Some of that they may have looked at if they didn't spend prior money, because what's funny is some of these groups that they've given to in the past have not spent the money that was appropriate to them. So also the United Way, but I don't know if they chimed in this year, but everything was graded. And
can we just let Ms. Ferguson speak?
Yeah, I would think.
Yeah, and I think that's appropriate. Before she, it was advocating for something, whether she, I was just hoping to maybe provide some clarity to whether or not those things were being appropriated to their organizations or not. But it sounds like there's some level of confusion. Ms. Ferguson, my apologies for jumping in here.
No problem.
Ms. Ferguson, why don't you go ahead, and then we're going to go to
what? No, we're going to 70. Keep taking Kansas City.
I'm sorry. Oh, he might be on something else. I'm sorry, Ms. Ferguson. Would you go ahead and speak?
Absolutely. Thank you to the committee for this opportunity to speak, and to the city staff that are here and any other citizens that are here. Thank you for your listening ear. I'm Deon Ferguson, St. Louis City native and founder and executive director of Good Journey Development Foundation, which is a St. Louis youth and community development focused nonprofit organization And we work with young people ages 8 to 25 and their families. We have 4 strategies. The first one we use is to develop young people's connections to their identity, culture, and community. The second is to recognize youth as community assets and experts. The third is to engage youth as community leaders on issues that matter to them. And finally, our fourth is to bring youth and adults together as equal partners to do the work. Good Journey's work is grounded in an African value system. And youth who have participated are more connected to themselves, their families, and their communities. They understand how their actions affect the whole. Good Journey helps to create young, knowledgeable, creative, and caring citizens who strive to make things better. We understand the grand significance of youth work and the detriment caused when we adults don't do our work. Good Journey's understanding of this demonstrated by us doing more, not less, during the pandemic. And we were not funded through Prop S in 2020. We provided healthy food and recipes to 20 families, including more than 60 children from June to August 2020. We developed a partnership with the Bailey Foundation to continue food deliveries throughout the school year for more than 60 students. We continue to engage more than 50 young people virtually through our community, school-based Saturday and summer programs, and prepared and delivered program supplies to more than 20 youth and their families. We planned and coordinated more than 15 community leaders, St. Louis community leaders, to facilitate virtual education workshops with summer youth participants. Because of the virtual summer experience with Good Journey, many of our youth were more prepared for their school virtual learning experience during the 2020-2021 school year. We also partnered with Kabila Hart and restarted an old program, Express You Through Art, that will impact the lives and communities of 10 young Black men between the ages of 18 and 25, struggling with homelessness, poverty, and the judicial system. And we have plans to expand to 30 young men in 2022. We developed workshops and trained 6 artists and therapists who are the facilitators of the Express You Through Art program. And this is aiding in our capacity to expand this program. We started 2 new programs, including a parent book club with 7 members who are now on their 2nd book. The 2nd program we started is called Live Black Youth Corps. And it is a 2-year youth organizer building project led by 2 former Good Journey youth participants. They will promote organizing and advocacy work around racial justice by 15 to 30 youth in 1 year. So we are developing organizers and advocates for racial justice. We develop partnerships with Evolve and Gateway Greening to implement this growing season, the Youth Community Garden Project. It is also led by a Good Journey youth participant. And this youth garden will impact more than 30 youth and their families through gardening education, healthy food for the creation of healthy meals, and the development of a youth herbal tea business. We increased our board membership to include 3 Good Journey leaders, ages 16, 17, and 22, including the inaugural St. Louis Youth Poet Laureate. We have to lead by example by putting youth in leadership positions. Additionally, we are partnering with St. Louis Youth Jobs to provide work and leadership skill building opportunities to 2 young people this summer. While we were in a pandemic, we understood that the pandemic required us to do more, not less. So we are asking that either unused funds from 2020 be designated or there be a reallocation of 2021 funds to Good Journey Development Foundation for our work, which includes the summer, year-round, and the Young Black Men specific programs. 85% of youth in our Summer Leadership Academy demonstrated greater academic success as reported by parents and school progress reports. And more than 95% of young people avoided the juvenile justice system. 90% of youth in Our Community, Our World Saturday program increased self-awareness and ability to work collectively, as demonstrated through their community engagement and leading and participating in community projects. While 75% of young adults in Express You Through Art assigned through the drug court program successfully completed their program. While our original request was just above 51,000, we are able to reduce this amount. And we ask that you approve a 2021 allocation that will help Good Journey solidify our efforts and allow us to safely bring 30 youth together for Saturday's Our Community, Our World program and 20 youth together for Summer Leadership Academy with the proper PPE and necessary cleaning supplies. It will also allow for us to staff the summer and Saturday programs and provide 3 additional youth mentors with stipends and leadership experience. It will also allow for us to implement Express You Through Art for young Black men, providing the necessary supplies for the program. Thank you for your time. And if you have thoughts or questions to share, I'm available to answer.
Thank you so much. We do have Alderman John Muhammad, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Would Ms. Ferguson or Ms. Ryan be so kind to answer a couple of questions that I have? First, I want to acknowledge the leadership of Alderman Boyd, who led the subcommittee when we discussed these allocations. Of course, it's never an easy task to divide up just a little under $1 million to community organizations. So I thank Alderman Boyd for his leadership and transparency in that. But let's talk about the Roosevelt Community Council. In this year's allocation request, you requested $50,000, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, last year, which you also requested $50,000 and received. Now, you did not get to spend that $50,000 because of COVID-19. Now, that $50,000, well, you didn't spend any of it at all last year. So that $50,000 rolls over. So you have the opportunity to spend that $50,000 before a designated time. So if we approved another allocation of $50,000, essentially, we will be giving the Roosevelt Community Council $100,000 to do work between a 8-month time period. So with the grant proposal that you got last year, is it unfeasible to continue to use that until a designated time that was given by the Director of Public Safety and the Comptroller to spend down that money before asking for another supplemental appropriation?
We are currently using 2020 funding. Typically, it's awarded on a calendar year basis. So if you do not ask before the end of the calendar year, you cannot spend it after the end of the calendar year. We did ask, we did get the permission. We can only use it through June 30. It has to be basically encumbered by June 30 of this year. And then after that, we have no funding for the rest of the year.
Okay, so is the only guaranteed source of funding, is your only guaranteed source the City of St. Louis Youth Crime Prevention Grant? Is that the only source that you get that you can rely on for funding?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
We're unusual in that we're not a nonprofit with an office and a staff and a whatever. It's me and my colleagues on our community council, all volunteers, and the only source of funding is this grant. Now, $25,000 would carry us through to the end of the year, I believe.
Okay, I just want you to understand essentially what you're asking, because what you're doing now, essentially any organization that applied in this previous year, it was, I believe, 41 organizations. Any of those 40 other organizations can essentially do what you're doing now. Well, we needed more take from them and give to us. We only have $1 million to allocate to. So once it's allocated, it's not like we have another pot of funding to go into. We essentially have to take that from another small organization just like yours. And one of the things that we did not do this fiscal year with this grant, we did not fund the big organizations who can honestly do without this grant funding. We focused on grassroots, small organizations that have intimate relationships within our wards and within our communities throughout the city. And I don't want to be the one to set a trend or open up a box as if we can just fund organizations because they come before us and give us, their story or their pitch. Now you've been awarded this grant. This grant has been in existence for several years, and you have received it 5 times. I see 5 times that the Roosevelt Community Council has benefited from the city of St. Louis. Don't you think that it's only fair, transparent, and equitable if we give this opportunity to other organizations who have not been so fortunate to continuously receive this grant? Although your organization does great work, which we need, but have you sought other grant funding outside the city of St. Louis? Have you done other research, or do you just rely on the city?
There's some possibility. There's something called ESSER 3, which is federal funding. It's COVID relief related. There's some possibility that money might be available for high school level after school activities. However, my attempts to engage the St. Louis Public Schools with talking about that use for those funds so far has not gone anywhere. And other than that, because we promised Dr. Adams that we would operate through the foundation, we're not free to just go out and apply for grants. We will be seeking to do that, but we have to get permission from the district to do it. So when I saw the list 2 weeks ago, I did start making a list of other entities that we could approach for funding. But I don't have permission yet to do that. So as of June 30, as things stand at the moment, our enrichment programming will be ending June 30, 2021. The district's after school program goes through July 9th. So the last 2 weeks of that will happen without our participation, unless some additional funding is coming from the committee. So that's the situation.
Absolutely. So another question, I'm looking at your grant proposal here, and it's very good. It's just like the other 40 applicants that also applied. Their applications were good as well. So with this particular grant, the after school program, now the district does offer an after school program opposite of the program that you normally sponsor, right?
No, this district only offers sports for high school age kids. There's no district funding for after school programs, at least at Roosevelt. Somehow in the past, Metro High School has done after school programming. I don't know how, I don't know what the funding is. Roosevelt has no money to do that.
Okay, so now are students at Roosevelt, are they not permitted to go to other schools to take benefit of their after school programs? Is this by school basis?
It's school by school. There wouldn't be transportation. It wouldn't work. It needs to be in the Roosevelt building for Roosevelt kids.
I get that. So I just, and I'm doing this for a reason, right? When you opened up, you intentionally opened up by saying, well, Miss Ferguson, I believe, did this. we don't, or it could have been you, it was one of you two. Roosevelt is not a white school, it's a black school. I guess to dumb down the gap that exists, right? So it may not be a gap between race, but there is a gap between economics and between disparities. When you look at South St. Louis and North St. Louis, our disparities are far greater. And we don't have the benefit of having a after-school program at Vashon or Sumner or at Northwest, right? So if our children, and they may be miles away from school, if our children want to participate in a program that the school in that neighborhood or that area does not offer, they would have to do essentially the same thing that you are saying your students can't do, which is find transportation to get to another after-school program.
Can I interrupt here respectfully? Are we making a decision about this today?
Are you calling for a point of order?
A point of order. I mean, I don't know that we're making a decision about this today, and inquiring of Miss Ryan at this point seems a little out of order about her programming. I mean, if we didn't fund them last year, I mean, we need to consider who we're going to fund for the next year. And I don't know if this is coloring the water, you know, as far as making these decisions. So I wonder whether we're appropriate at this time.
Mr. Clerk, are you out there, Terry?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Can you? I guess I guess I need the rule on a point of order, but
I don't know whether we don't have all the applicants here and we're questioning, and I just wonder if we're kind of chasing rabbits, you know.
Terry, what's your opinion on this?
I didn't hear you.
So what? So
You
she
have to
called
rule.
point of order saying that we're discussing a bill that's really not in front of us, I guess, and that it's, I guess, being unfair to other applicants that are not here to speak. I guess I'm looking for what your thoughts are, since I could refer to the chairman of the subcommittee, which is Jeffrey.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Since I'm not on the subcommittee,
you would have to rule whether you
acted appropriate right now.
Yeah, you do not have the correct information in front of you. So
We do not, or we do?
You do
we
not.
do not.
You do not. Mm-hmm.
So we let the two speakers speak because they've been here for a long time.
Since the beginning of the meeting. Mm-hmm.
Right. I guess the point of order that Alderman Howard's bringing up is John's line of questioning right now appropriate at this time, or is it not? I guess, and I guess that's her.
I will yield, Mr. Chair. I'm done.
Okay. So
I'm not trying to cause any problems, but I just think we're kind of going down a blank alley here where we don't really have all the information in front of us. So, I mean, if we don't have all the information in front of us, why are we pursuing it?
So
I agree with Alderwoman Howard, Mr. Chair.
Alderman Boyd or Chairman Boyd, I'm going to let you take over because I don't even know who's on the subcommittee. What I would say is for the new subcommittee, if you would chair it again for this year's, and any member of public safety, and I assume even outside public safety, should talk to Vice Chairman Boyd, so you could be on this decision. And I can tell you, I more than appreciate the Vice Chairman doing this, because this is a subcommittee that everybody's going to love you or hate you. There is no easy, because you have all these groups, and you got bigger groups like the Boys Club and and big brothers and sisters and all these different groups, then, you know, that's why I purposely don't want to be on it, nor do I even participate in it. And I just want to say how much I appreciate, you know, Vice Chairman Boyd and Alderman Muhammad and those that sat on this, because the money, the people that get the money think you're the greatest. And the people that don't get the money think, well, you know, you're not. So I just want to publicly thank the vice chairman and the members. And if anybody wants to sit on the subcommittee for this year's funding, you know, I would say just let Jeffrey know. Karen, we keep, look, I know it's been a long meeting. Okay. So anyway,
Mr. Chairman.
I'm going to let, oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I was just going to say that the subcommittee was fairly balanced. There were a couple of aldermen on the subcommittee that's not on the Public Safety Committee to create balance and to make sure we had a cross-sectional amount of aldermen that can represent the whole city as much as possible. As Alderman Muhammad said, it's very difficult to make these decisions. There was a lot of thought put in to making these decisions. There were some aldermen on the committee that intimately knew a lot of the organizations, the good work they did, maybe the shortcomings. The pandemic did cause a problem with some of the organizations spending out all of their money. Like Ms. Ryan said, I believe the comptroller's office may not be offering an extension for people that they don't spend it by June 30th, but I mean, the comptroller's the comptroller. Certainly that's our policy. Maybe the comptroller could change the policy because the pandemic really threw everybody, you know, for a loop. Also, it is our understanding that there's monies unspent, Prop S money, and for past years. I'd like to request that Dr. Isom, you know, provide the committee with the amount of money that has been unspent, and maybe we can reallocate that money. And some of the organizations that we just couldn't get to this year could get a supplemental appropriation from unspent money from previous years. And I do know for a fact that, you know, there's always unspent money from some organizations in some big amount every year. So I like the opportunity to come back in the next couple of days or early next week to kind of finalize this. Certainly, as you said, you know, there are people that are going to feel like we're the good guys or the bad guys. There are a lot of organizations that certainly was worthy. There were organizations that got cut a lot of funding from the previous year funding, but we can't get to everybody. It's just less than $1 million. And we can have these hearings and we can have everybody come and speak and give reasons why they should be funded, all 40 organizations. We could be here for several days doing that. But at the end of the day, we still have to make a decision. It was a very fair process. Incarnate Word was the organization, unlike United Way previously. Incarnate Word helped us out tremendously this year. There was a matrix used. And then again, there was other aldermen that had background information, as well as members of the Public Safety Office that provided, you know, good information to help us make our decisions.
Could I?
So be more than happy to bring the whole list to the next, to have it available at the next committee hearing where people can see all the organizations that requested funding, the funding allocations that they requested, and who we recommended, Mr. Chairman.
I would ask too, and we're going to have three more alders that have their hands up. But I would ask too if Vice Chairman Boyd and Dr. Isom, if you could get together, and I also think that out of fairness to the public safety director who's just stepping in this, for him to find all that information out, he may need some advice too. I would ask if you and whoever could meet with Dr. Isom and maybe even help him through the process, which is a interesting process. And if it's okay with you, Vice Chairman Boyd, I'm going to go across the board because Alderman Shameen Hubbard had her hand up first, followed by Alderman Dan Gunther, followed by Alderwoman Davis, if that's okay.
I can yield. My hand was probably up when I thought that the meeting was going in a different direction. I wanted to make sure that the speakers had an opportunity to speak, so I will yield. Thank you.
Okay, Alderman Dan Gunther, you're up, and then I think we're going to wrap it up with Alderwoman Davis. My recommendation is that if the public safety director and the chair of the subcommittee would get together so that there's even a better understanding of the process, how we come to those decisions that, that we don't, even though we could randomly pick, we don't, they do have a grading system. And I would recommend any member that seems interested in this should absolutely talk to Jeffrey, even if you're not a member of public safety, talk to Jeffrey to get on the committee. And then anyway, Alderman Dan Gunther, you're up.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So yeah, thank you for taking the questions, and thank you to Vice Chair or the I guess the committee subcommittee chair, Alderman Boyd. It seems that there is some confusion here, and I'm listening through this to try to also understand whether we're talking about the 2020 or the 2021 Prop P. So I guess to keep it simple, I was just wondering if either Mr. Clerk or the chair or the subcommittee chair can make sure that the 2020 allocations and the 2021 allocations get sent to all the Alder people. I was going to speak in support of the Roosevelt program, but it sounds like we're not really discussing that at the moment. So if we can just kind of get some clarity by having both of those lists and who has been allocated funding to all of the Alder people, because I can't find it anywhere on a drive or in my past emails. So I'll keep it simple right there.
The only funding that's been even allocated, or not even allocated, but put together was last year's. We haven't even started this year's because it doesn't really start until around August or September. That's when I should have, and again, I will keep putting it back on me, should have put the resolution in. And at that point, it would be a different subcommittee, although still chaired by the vice chair who's willing to take this task on. So everything we're talking about technically should have been a resolution should have been done last August or September. I didn't realize that. We put a subcommittee together. We discussed all the appropriations, but we never did the resolution. Again, my fault, because it was only the second year that I was even doing this, and this committee. So it was new to me that I didn't realize I had to have the resolution together. This year, we will do a resolution. It will go to the committee, and it's a whole different appropriation and a whole different subcommittee, still chaired by the vice chairman. Does that answer that?
Sure. Yeah. So just whenever that accurate list comes out, and I will say, besides Roosevelt, which I think has been funded, I think Ms. Ryan said for 11 years, in the past, besides 2020, when things got strange with COVID, the years before that, I remember sitting through the meetings and some organizations getting smaller amounts, like a $5,000 grant to be able to do work. And this year, the numbers on our list are all $40,000, $50,000 grants. So yeah, when we get the appropriate list together for 2020, please send that to all of us to be able to look at, so that the next time we can come and advocate for the groups that we would like to support. So.
And that will, and I think, the public safety director and the chair of the subcommittee are going to get together, and even from my part, we're going to make this better. What I'm going to do, if it's okay with you, Alderman or Vice Chairman Boyd, I'm going to let Alderman Davis speak, and then I'm going to let you wrap it up and close the meeting. So, Alderwoman Davis, if you could go ahead and have your say.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I want to thank Ms. Ryan and Ms. Ferguson for their work in our communities, and most especially for your patience today. It is unfortunate that you were brought or suggested for you to come here today, because this is not the appropriate way to handle this consideration. We have now put our process in jeopardy because all others who may not have been identified to continue to receive funding should have the same opportunity. There was a purpose to having a subcommittee, and the subcommittee should be allowed to do its job. At this point, it is obvious that we need to have some additional rules put to that committee so that the committee can get its work done with more quantitative information in front of them. And so, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to ask that the Comptroller's Office, along with the Public Safety Director's Office, give us a 3-year expenditure for all those organizations that have been funded. Because one of the things that I've noticed, just not even being on this committee, but hearing a lot of the organizations that we have funded were unable to spend their funds, which means that their program was ineffective and the funds should be reallocated. So there's a lot of work to be done, and unfortunately, it puts everybody in a bad situation. So if we can look at the process and make sure that it has some additional information added to it, and also have a way to be prepared, because other organizations that were denied, they're going to hear about what happened today, and they're going to want to come and speak. And technically, they should speak to the subcommittee, not to us. Thank you very much.
Vice Chairman Boyd, not only are you recognized on this, you're recognized to adjourn
Sure.
the meeting when you're done.
And I have the power to adjourn. Is that correct, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman?
I'm
Okay.
going to mute
So
myself.
I want to speak to Alderman Gunther's point and say that in the years past, the Public Safety Committee has awarded grants to about 30 plus organizations. And some of them were 5,000, 10,000, 15,000. But what it did was it overwhelmed the public safety department. There's only one person to administer all these grants in the public safety department, one person to facilitate all of this. And over the years, I'm proud to say that it's become more efficient. People are submitting their applications online versus a whole lot of paper. And I'm proud of the fact that we have made this process a much better process. So we intentionally did not want to fund more than 15 or 16 organizations, because it's not fair to overwhelm one person. If the public safety department had 2 or 3 people that administer 30 or 40 applications, then that's a great thing, but they don't. And so we just want to be fair to that department and fair to all organizations as well, because when some organizations ask for way too much money, don't have the capacity to spend it, and some people ask for not enough money to do what they really want to do. So again, there's a lot of thought put into making these allocations, and I look forward to next week being able to share more about how this process went and why we decided as a subcommittee what we decided. And a public hearing, the public, any organization has a right to come and speak their mind. It's not something that we can stop because this is on the agenda. It's all for public record. And even though they didn't get funded, they still, have a right to appear before the public safety meeting and just give their comments or concerns. So with that, I'm going to adjourn the public safety meeting for today, May 18th. Thank you, everybody, for your participation.
Thank you, Alderman Boyd.